What are your experiences in history?
I study it at degree level at JMU, and I also enjoy doing a lot of historical stuff like museum visits and reading historical books in my spare time.
So, the Banqueting House, we watched an introductory video. How'd you find it?
I think the introductory video had been put together to try and show off all aspects of the Banqueting House, but I think it would have been better had it been aimed squarely at being an introduction. I think it was a little bit too varied in what it was trying to say. When we walked in, because it's on a continuous loop, but when we walked in it was talking about architecture and Inigo Jones, and then it was also talking about the history, it was doing a timeline, and while in theory those all sound like very good things to have in an introduction, it wasn't as clear or as useful as it could have been.
So what do you think could be done to improve the introduction video?
I think it could definitely be shorter, or split into a couple of bits and put in separate parts. Because the video was so long, and because people were coming in at different times, by the time we left the introductory video area, it was completely full. And people were watching bits and then not knowing whether they needed to keep watching. It was very confusing, and it wasn't as clear or as concise as it should have been. So yeah, shorten it and make sure it only includes relevant introductory information as opposed to just a complete history of the place.
So the audio, when we finally got to the banqueting hall, was the main source of information, really. How did you feel about that?
As a rule, I don't tend to like audio guides. However, this one was actually very good. The only thing that I think would have improved it a lot would have been some sort of contents. This is because it really was very difficult to know, first of all, how long the audio guide actually was. There was no indication of whether it would take 40 minutes or 2 hours, or what the subjects it was going to cover were. You had to listen to each segment to find out at the end what was going to be in the next one, which meant, and you couldn't really run forward effectively. There was a running forward option, but you had to listen to a good chunk of each one to work out what's coming next. And because it only covered the next one, it was very difficult to say, oh, I really want to listen to the bit about that, because you didn't know whether there was going to be a bit about a certain thing, like the paintings or the mirrors. And also it was very difficult to know how to pace yourself, and also for a place that small to have such a long audio guide made it very difficult to see why you would listen to the whole thing.
Do you feel the audio was helpful? Did you learn anything from it?
I did learn from it. It was especially because there wasn't a huge amount of introduction. There was some stuff I knew already, stuff about the monarchy, the beheading of Charles I, those sorts of things. I did already, I've studied them before and I've read them as interest bits. I think there were a lot of things that were very interesting and was things I didn't know. It's just some of them weren't things I actually really wanted to know. I'm not particularly interested in architecture as a rule, and I found it a little bit boring hearing about multiple types of architecture, whereas the paintings there were really interesting.
So, do you think there could have been any additional way of presenting the information apart from the audio?
I think while the audio guide was really good, and well, a very good audio guide compared to a lot of others, I think it would have been nice to have something to read, because it can be a little bit repetitive standing in a room or sitting in a room listening to an audio guide for a while. It's quite a long audio guide for somewhere that size, and also it would have been nice to just have something to read, and also pictures, because the banqueting house as a whole is quite small and very plain, compared to other things of its type, and it needed some breaking up of the continuous audio commentary. It would have been really quite nice to have, boards, plaques, some sort of display, maybe an interactive thing, unlike a lot of other museums and stuff, it didn't have any interactive stuff apart from the audio guide, and that made it a little bit, it was nice not to have interactive programming, but it also left it with a bit of a gap of nothing making up for it, the lack.
To summarise, what did you like and what did you
Things I liked. It's nice and uncluttered, and also because it's not the most popular place to visit, it also doesn't have too many people. It doesn't suffer from the issues that a lot of other sites have because it doesn't have massive queues. I liked the mirrors, and I liked the interactive drawers on the mirrors. They were quite the little tiny bits of written information in them did do a really nice job of breaking it up. It just wasn't enough. I really liked the audio guide, was really good, and I just liked the place as a whole. It had a very nice atmosphere. What I didn't like so much was the slightly monotonous audio guides, and the lack of other things to take your attention. If you didn't really look at stuff and go, oh, I'd really like to know what's happening over there, you'd just be like, that's the throne. That's not a throne.